go.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Inspiring Connections, episode 18.
Yay!
Wow, we're getting up there. I'm Marty.
I'm Misty.
And we have a really great topic for you today.
Our topic is how small businesses can build their audience by building their content.
And who do we have?
We have Suzanna Keith. She's into marketing, and she's been helping brands for 20 years.
Absolutely. And she's a terrific marketer. And we met Suzanna, first of all, on Twitter, online. And then we met in person in June at a tweet up in Washington, D.C. that Antran ran. And she's just terrific. I mean,
and then we also saw her again.
Oh, in New York just recently at another talk, another event. But what we like about Suzanna is not only is she a great marketer in the traditional sense, but she really has a great understanding of how technology and the online world, and especially social marketing and content marketing, have really evolved and really become a big part of the marketing mix. And this is especially true not only for big brands, but also small businesses. And we get into that in today's episode, and really how small businesses can use content and social to really evolve and extend their marketing message and their marketing efforts.
And also build their audience.
Absolutely. So without any further ado, let's get right into it with Suzanna Keith. Susanna, welcome to PodJam TV Live.
Thank you, Mr. and Marty. I am so honored to be here tonight. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you with us. Susanna, why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about you and your business and your background, a little bit about your marketing background, and you have some really interesting tidbits here for us. So why don't you get going and tell us a little bit about it yourself?
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm originally from Tennessee, but I have an MBA in marketing, and I've spent most of my career in New York and Houston. Wow. And I've been a brand marketer for over 20 years, working on every type of brand, from Revlon cosmetics to A&W root beer to Zantac to you name it. So I've worked across a lot of industries, and it's been a lot of fun. And then recently I really jumped on the social media bandwagon as a brand manager, realizing that, when digital came about, first you needed to be on the web, and then you needed to have a Twitter, and now you need to have a Facebook, and realized that it became a very important part of the marketing mix. And then I decided to jump into blogging myself, and I had a blog called Revolutionary Marketing Ideas, where I wrote about key case studies for brands and advertising trends. And after doing that for a while with my consulting business for small businesses, I realized that just takes a lot of time.
Sure does.
There's a lot of people who are out there doing an incredible job, because you need market research, you need key trends, you need insights, and people like Shelley Kramer with her blog V3, Julia Rosen with her blog Social North, they're doing a great job. So I felt that for me personally, with your writing, I find that you really have to follow your passion so that you can be excited and continue to have content to write and appeal to your readers. So I moved into tech and travel and sports, which I love. And it fits with my family and also with my marketing background. So that's a little bit about me, but I also love to be on social media because I've met so many great people. I've always been a big person to help other people out. I love, Wharton Professor Adam Grant's book about those who give. People in life, if you just give and help others, you really can find success.
No, that's so true.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Well, that's quite a diverse background, a lot of combination of brands and marketing concepts and things like that. Why don't we get right into it with some questions? Do you have anything from Twitter, or do you want to go with what we have here?
Yeah.
Okay. Susanna, what do you think the top three reasons brands like Google, Disney, Apple, and a lot of other big brands do differently to help them connect with their customers?
I think what's happened is we found that you can no longer just connect with consumers with brand advertising. You really need to have a diverse mix. You need to have advertising and promotion, and now you need social media. So you see a lot of big brands out there on the web with their campaigns, whether it's with YouTube, with Facebook, with Twitter, with Google, all having the same consistent message. And I think a great example of who really does that well is Disney. In fact, my dear friend Laura Spencer was the brains behind bringing together a multitude of moms. They almost became this great army of women who talked about the Disney brand. They talked about the experience. And what they did is they created an environment of trust. I think with women, we're the primary household purchasers. Women make 80% of the purchasing decisions, but we like to go out and talk to basically our board of directors. That was my friend Mary Lou Quinlan's big theory. She's a rock star of advertising. And that women go out and they talk to their different directors and they try to make their purchasing decisions. And we talk to those that we trust. And so Disney did a great job of creating a community that women would trust. And Laura Spencer now has gone off and has her own PR business, Spencer McMillan, but she did a great job of creating Disney social media moms, having events where they brought Disney to moms in major cities. I attended one in Houston that was, just excellent. Another brand that does social media marketing really well is MasterCard. They realize that you can't just get out there with TV advertising or radio advertising or sponsoring, Major League Baseball. You need to get out there and really engage with the consumer and have a dialogue. And one of the great things that they're taking advantage of is cause marketing. They got out there with Stand Up Cancer, and they now have an event where you can, if you use your MasterCard at key restaurants, a percentage goes to cancer. And as we all know, cancer is a big cause. And with things like Live Strong and Chaos right now, there's a real opportunity for brands like Stand Up for Cancer, not-for-profits, to come in and really provide education. So I really applaud MasterCard for going out there and using cause marketing, because for those of us now that have disposable income, we'd love to be able to spend and give back. Most people with this economy can't write a big check anymore, but you'd love to be able to purchase things and give back at the same time. So I think it's a really great insight for brands to use cause marketing to target consumers.
Yeah, that sounds like a real win-win situation too, because not only brands, one of the things I think brands need to do now is create fans instead of just customers, but also it is a win-win what you're saying about cause marketing, where the brand is getting something out of it and the customer is also contributing and you're helping a very worthy cause. Yeah, that's a great point. What should be the focus of brands in terms of their content and message distribution?
I think, as far as their content, like going back to, I think, that position that Laura Spencer nailed, which is really you're creating authenticity and trust. It wants to be organic in that you're not controlling it and people really are loving the brands and talking about them. But at the same time, it has to be an environment of trust. Brands really need to stay consistent to their messaging. Say the same message that they've been saying on TV or their promotion, their print, that, provides credibility. They go out there and try to be hip and cool in something that they're not. Consumers aren't going to believe in it. So you really need to kind of manage that messaging well and really deliver it consistently. And, that's the real challenge for marketers with their content, is really to build trust.
And I would imagine trust is very important. I would imagine authenticity is very important as well. And that kind of leads me to the next topic, which is blogging. And this is something that's grown, that's become very big. I know Misty and I are involved in it as well. We work with a couple of brands in that area. Do you think brands should be blogging? And if so, what's your take on content marketing? Because that's really where it comes from. It's really where it's going, where, it's providing value, providing content that is value to their customers. And how about brand ambassadorship programs? I know that Misty and I are involved with Verizon, for one. I'm not sure if you're involved as well, but those. I know it's a loaded question. Maybe take it one at a time.
He's excited with it.
I know, right? Because that's a big area. Blogging. I mean, I know we've seen it. So, do you think brands, first of all, should be blogging in the first place?
I think they should. I think if you just look at some case studies of a natural evolution of how brands have used social media well, a good example is Procter & Gamble. And I think for small businesses, you can look at these big brands and and bring those ideas back to your own business. Like Procter & Gamble, a great example, which I love sports, as I mentioned earlier, and I know you do too, Marty and Misty, is with the Olympics. They had a great campaign, Thank You Mom. Yep. They started out with the advertising. They had it on Facebook. To me, as a mother of competitive athletes, it was excellent because it really pulled on my purse strings of thank you, Mom, for all you do to bring up these kids so well. You know, our children are our future. It was absolutely beautiful. Well, then what they did is they had this on Facebook and social media. Then they brought in the blogging element. And you started to see bloggers out there talking about brands. My friend Tina Seitzinger, who has the brand Life in Pink, does a great job with Procter & Gamble about talking about different brands and what's happening there. And she's someone that has an incredible amount of followers. And again, what that drills back down to, again, is the issue of trust, you know, creating trust
and authenticity, right?
Authenticity. And a great way to do that is, again, so brands should be out there blogging, getting their content out there, but that they should, I think brand ambassadors are a great way to build trust. Now, they also need to do brand ambassadors that have, you know, a great following and are what we call influencers as well. So they really kind of need to look at them very carefully. And sometimes you're going to need to, you know, you may need to compensate those people and manage them well. Their talent. I think the key thing about blogging, though, is Shelley Kramer, who I mentioned earlier, who has the blog V3 and who's really the goddess of blogging, said is that, you know, blogging is really another publishing platform. So we as brand marketers need to use that well to effectively deliver content that is true to our marketing message and that really resonates the equity of our brand and builds trust and reasons to purchase. So I think it's a great, you know, opportunity for brands to get out there and get their messaging and just keep it consistent. You know, and exciting, I think, is the key way to really engage consumers.
Absolutely. I like how you said about the brand ambassadorship, the compensation. You know, I know a lot of them, you know, they're providing free product in exchange for, you know, a review or a blog post or whatever. But it's interesting you bring that up because we've actually spoken on that topic. And I think it's getting to the point now where, you know, bloggers are a whole nother channel. And, you know, like you mentioned with influence, they are just important as another advertising channel for brands. But then I think it's much more important than a traditional commercial. A traditional commercial, I mean, I think everyone knows they're being marketed to when a brand does a nice, slick 30-second commercial. But with content marketing, if you can provide value and then also kind of, you know, weave in, I guess, your marketing message, then it's not so obtrusive, I think, you know. And also if it's coming from real people, you know, like Misty and I or you, Suzanna, you know, your community, they trust you. You take time to build that community up. So if you're partnering with brands and you believe in the product, I think it's tremendously beneficial to the brands.
And that makes it also authentic. Like for bloggers, I'm sure those authentic bloggers would only accept brand ambassadorship for brands that they actually believe in, right?
Absolutely. What do you think, Suzanna?
I think that's very true. I mean, I think another great case study is the evolution of the online mom, Monica Vila. She's done such a great job of getting out there, providing a real service, a real insight is that parents need to understand the internet and how it impacts their family and protect their children and learn how to navigate. And she's provided this great service. Now, in turn, tech companies as well as the media, Katie Couric, you know, a lot of the major press, they go to her to ask her expertise. She's out there. She knows the latest trends. She can help people navigate. So I think what's really great is you've seen this evolution of brand influencers in the marketplace. So when brands now start to look to embrace these bloggers, they need to do it very carefully. They need to have a more senior team come in. I mean, these people are entrepreneurs. I mean, you've seen a little bit of the mommy wars out there about, you know, the mom bloggers, and they need to be treated with respect. These are their businesses. This is their expertise. You need to do something more than just give them a free product.
Yes.
You know, you need to embrace the brand. They embrace the brand. They live the brand. It's the lifestyle. I think that's the big, you know, insight.
Yeah, I think that
I love the way that she said that, you know, should be the bloggers should also be respected and thought of as someone that's their work. They're entrepreneurs. You're right. So
yeah, I think that's a big challenge for brands as they kind of evolve into this new world of content marketing, working with bloggers, and kind of expand their channel of influence.
And can I also add, I think it's also important for brands not to just, get this influencers, but also develop relationships with them.
Oh, big time.
Instead of just like, hey, this is a free product. No. Get to know them, get to know who their audience are, get to know who they are, so that they can communicate much, much better.
Now, Suzanna, oh, absolutely. Now, speaking of content marketing and blogging, another big trend is developing and evolving. That's social media. That's been around for a little while now, but brands are certainly beginning to embrace that. What challenges do you see for brands now that social media is part of the marketing mix?
Marty, I think you nailed it. It is a critical part of the marketing mix. It's almost like the price of entry. It used to be you'd have to just have a web page and say, here's my products. Now it's like you got to get out in social media and you got to engage with the consumers. And it's all about taking experiential marketing to the next level. It's events. It's, around the events. It's the Twitter. It's the conversations. It's the Facebook. It's the dialogue. And I think what brands have to do now is they either need to have an internal team who can really be the guardian of the brand equity on social media, or they hire an agency, or they're hiring a great blogging team, and someone who really knows all the different media. Twitter is 140 words, and it's got to be smart, it's got to be witty, it's got to talk about your equity, and that's hard to do. And you need to have somebody who's a good writer. Facebook's fairly similar. Facebook and YouTube, we know things can go viral in a second. And it can go in your favor or not in your favor.
Right.
Some brands like Oreo, they have had some great opportunities. Like, what was it, the Super Bowl?
It was great.
The blackout, let's dunk our Oreos. I mean, that was brilliant. I'm trying to remember the exact language, but if you have a team who's ready and able and rocking and rolling and thinking about the trends, and they know how to write about your brand, you can hit it out of the park. You can have a home run. So I think what we're finding now is that brands really need to make sure they have experts who fully understand. The Twitter audience is also different. You need to get out there and engage with them. You can't just have the brand. If you're going to have an ask category, you got like some of the airlines, you got to get that out there and respond. You got to say thank you. And small businesses can do that as well, especially when they're delivering products. Consumers can go on Twitter and say, hey, my product hasn't arrived, or I'm having this or that problem. How do I get an answer? I think it's definitely taking customer service to a completely new level. But I think, again, it's all about brands need to make sure they have a good engagement team who can create a positive dialogue.
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of brands, maybe, and a lot of probably the bigger brands, as social media has moved so fast, I think maybe some of them have been caught off guard. And I think, anybody who's worked for large companies or large brands know that traditionally they like to control the message, the whole message. So, in the past, it used to be that they controlled the marketing message, they advertised to you, you had to come to them. Now, I think the genie is really out of the bottle as far as this whole new world of really social marketing and how the customer now is in control. And in these companies, I think the fear is some of them, I think, are afraid of, oh man, what do we do? We're not in control anymore. And I think the smart companies realize, you know what, this is the trend. If we embrace this can really benefit us. And it's losing that fear and really engaging with the customer and really creating fans, right?
Right, very well said. And I think sometimes too, it's interesting, given that some of my social media career actually started in politics, I forgot to mention that. Now I kind of steer away from political messaging on Twitter and social media, but I almost think it's not just fans. You also have to think of people as your neighbors, your friends. They are having experience with your brand, and that you need to kind of treat them like you would treat yourself. So if they're having a bad experience with a brand, you need to be on top top of it. You need to react to it very, very quickly. I mean, you see people like, Scott Stratton, who's done really well with his book on marketing, and he has a lot of case studies about brands that went out there and acted really quickly. Someone had an issue with the shirt, and the manufacturer came back and gave them a completely brand new shirt. I'm trying to remember which one, but I don't want to misquote a brand. But I was so impressed by that brands need to get, it's a great opportunity to get some equity and some awareness. You could get a tweet that's retweeted, 100 times, and think of the exposures. I mean, you could have millions of impressions, which, could be so much less expensive than if you were to do an ad on, Thursday night TV with, burn notice, right? So I think that's why brands really have to be on top of social media and think of it as their friend and think of it as an exciting challenge. And I think the great thing that in our society, and that with many brands, I think when a brand apologizes quickly, people understand.
Yep.
It's all about,
like when you mentioned like fast response. I think sometimes these big brands are not used to, not used to do exposing maybe some of their frailties or some of their...
they're so afraid.
Yeah, they always seem like they have to be perfect. But I think, brands that humanize themselves and saying, we're only human, we're run by people, and are quick to admit mistakes, I think are going to
rather than making excuses. I guess that's what enrages people, is that a brand makes a mistake and then they create all these excuses. Right. So people tend to not forgive, and not forget and make it a lot bigger.
Yeah, I mean, if brands just would, admit, hey, we're not perfect, get right on top of it, like you said, Suzanne, I think perfect in the longer run. Now, they might take a little bit of a hit, but you know what? They're going to gain respect in the long run. And that it's not a short run game, it's the long run game. You want to create fans, you want to create long-term customers.
Loyal customers
that know, okay, I'm getting the straight scoop from this brand. They're not trying to, pull one over on me or whatever, So I think that's very, very important. Very well said.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, one of our dear friends, Ann Tran, has nailed the insight, which is social media is really about supporting others.
Yeah.
And
big time.
I would love to see brands even take it to a further level. They would need, and this is a great opportunity for small businesses, get out there and support your customers. Find out who are your fans, your neighbors that are on social media, and support them. If they have a great article or something great happening in their community, call them out, give them a shout out for the local charity event that was done in your town. Because I think what you'll find then is that you've built a community of support, so that someday when things do go wrong, those are the people that will stand by you and say, this is a brand that's a good brand. It supports its fans, it supports its people. And, it kind of, I think that's the next genre, really, for brands, is to kind of really get out there and engage, kind of what you see the thought leaders doing on Twitter. There's so many people who go out there and embrace each other and mentor each other. You see the same thing happen in Facebook. So I think brands really need to get out there and engage and kind of take it to a completely new level. And that's something that smaller businesses can do really well. When compared to the larger brands.
Absolutely.
Okay, when developing campaigns for brands that are the top three, what do you think are the top three considerations when selecting the communication channel?
I would say that's a key thing.
Yeah.
That's a really key thing. I think it kind of comes back to our marketing 101. Number one, what's your target?
Yeah.
Where are your target consumers? Are they on that media? Do they need to be on that media? For most brands, the target consumer is moms. As I said before, they're making 80% of the household purchasing. So you need to be where those moms are. We know that 80% of those women are on Twitter, Facebook, etc. Doing research, talking to their friends about brands. So number one, make sure your target's there. Number two is the competitive set present. Who are your competitors? Right. If you're the Whole Foods in your town, is Stop and Shop there? Is Trader Joe's there? You need to be there talking, having a dialogue. For a small business, if you're the local dry cleaner, hey, maybe you're the first one out there talking about how you're more environmentally friendly or you have better service. I think it's a great opportunity. Number two, look at the competitive set. And then thirdly, look at how do people talk.
Great point.
Especially Twitter, like they're talking 140 words, they're retweeting. How do they set up a link? How do you best communicate? Do you see a lot of Instagram on there? I mean, I think photos are definitely the next frontier. Photos go back to, again, the essence of brand marketing, which has become experiential marketing. You show a photo that gives you an experience with a brand, whether you're out to dinner at a restaurant or a sports game or with your family watching a movie. That creates the whole brand experience. And the more people who see other consumers experiencing their brand, the more trust and authenticity you're going to create for your brand. So I think, brands really need to get into, how is Instagram being used? How are pictures being used on Facebook? What's Google? What's the next way that we can really visually and verbally communicate our message? Right. So I think that's again why they need either a good team really studying social media internally or some good external partners.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. I'm going to go off the board since we mentioned Instagram and some of these newer social networks. I mean, where do you see the future? Because that's obviously a big component in really social marketing and the social web. It's really evolved very fast and become a very big component. Right now, Twitter, Facebook, Google Plus is coming up. Certainly the picture services, Instagram is very popular. You personally, where do you see the trend, out the next 5 years? Do you see any, do you see the same leaders, same thing kind of evolving, just getting bigger, or do you see some other newer trends emerging?
Well, I think the amazing thing is you just see the technology companies driving it. Like you guys mentioned your, Verizon bloggers. I mean, the photography capabilities that are coming out for smartphones are just absolutely incredible. Whether it's Samsung or Verizon or Nokia and everyone partnering together. Now the quality of the pictures that you can take and put on social media are just incredible. So I would say that is definitely a big driver. And that's really going to be driven by, technology companies, and then the delivery, whether Google's going to deliver it through the Google glasses or what it's going to be, or whether it's going to be the jawbone up, where we can see how we all are sleeping. I noticed that. And how we're all, managing our lives. And, it's like, I love the fact that I can now take my Nokia Lumia phone and take photos, and I don't need to drag the video camera or the smaller camera and the big lens and then my old cell phone. Now I can only carry one device to take great pictures of my kids when they're watching a baseball game. Right. So I think for brands, I think photography is going to really just completely change the landscape. I think brands have to be on top of that. I also think, again, this point that I mentioned earlier that Laura Spencer McMillan mentioned, it's all about building trust. And I think brands are going to have to look at a new way to do that by brand ambassadors, and then getting out there and using those ambassadors to further engage with their consumers. Get out there and do a shout out for those consumers. I think that those are some big trends that I really see emerging. We're all the great thing about technologies, we all have become one world. It's pretty amazing that, in Africa, everybody can have a cell phone now. It's revolutionized the world. It's really amazing. Of course, we still have to do a lot of things with poverty, but that's another story. Yeah. But at any rate, at least technology is breaking new fronts. We can see other people's experiences. When family is far away, you can feel like you're together. I have this great app now called YorY where I can do my videos on my phone and I can send them out to 19 members of my family in an instant. They can see my daughter's 8th birthday party, even though they're not there. Yeah. So it's pretty incredible. So I think for brands, they need to be completely on top of those trends and really figure out creative ways to engage and create a dialogue with consumers.
Yeah, you raise an excellent point as far as the mobile nature of now. When the internet first was born, it was really just a desktop phenomenon. You had to have a computer and you're kind of strapped to your desk, but now it's on everyone's cell phone. Both Misty and I have iPhones. We have them in our pockets all the time, and they're powerful computers, and you basically can get anywhere you want, any information anywhere you want at any time, and you can interact. And that's the big thing. Like you mentioned, you can interact with brands from anywhere. In fact, we were just out for dinner tonight before the show, we're Instagramming our food, and we love doing that, right? And we're out at the restaurant, where our location, and here we are, blah blah blah. I mean, it's moving at such a fast pace, and people can get their messages out and their opinions out so fast that these brands really, you're right, really have to be on top of it.
And I love how she said it too, is that in today's world, in social media, and everything is connected, that you make it a really small world. So like what we're doing right now, we're doing video, we're showcasing Suzanna and what she knows, and how we can help small businesses with her knowledge. 3 years ago, this wasn't even possible.
I know, right?
Right? You needed to buy ads so that you can have people see who Suzanna is.
That's right.
Now we have Google Hangouts,
right?
And we have Twitter to share our connections, to share what we know.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Suzanna, it's been a fast 30 minutes. This happens every week that we do this. I don't know where the time went.
Yeah.
But it was a fast 30 minutes.
But it was full packed of information. Antran is tweeting out, and I see a couple of other. We have Calvin and we have Garrick, and they were saying
Calvin.
they were saying that they really appreciate what you're saying and your message today.
Yep.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff there.
Great.
Susanna, if people want to contact you or find you online, where would they go?
So you can find me on Twitter at Skconcepts, or the Tech and Travel Mom, my blog. And also, please, anytime I can ever help anyone with their business, or just, some great advice. I mean, so many of the gang out there in the Twitter world, like Ann and Calvin and Misty and Marty and Monica, have reached out to me and mentored me. And I really appreciate that. And I want to do the same for others. And Misty and Marty, I also want to give a shout out to you with PodJam TV. What you're doing is really cutting new ground and innovating by having these great educational shows that we can go and listen to on our iPod later, and really think about the great brand nuggets and insights, and create a dialogue. So really, big kudos to the two of you.
Thank you very much, Susanna. That was excellent. Wow, that was fast.
Yeah.
Thanks, Susanna. Suzanna Keith. Wow, that was great from Susanna. A lot of great information, especially for everybody who either is starting a small business or is running a small business, and maybe
working with brands,
and
bloggers, and brand influencers,
and how to really evolve with the times, in social and also content marketing, how that really can be a very important part of your marketing mix.
Yeah.
So great by Susanna. We hope to have her back in the future as well, to talk more about this great topic. Before we go, we want to also let everyone know, for those of you watching or listening to this podcast, the content for this podcast is repurposed from a live show that we do every Sunday night
at 8:30 p.m.
Eastern Time. It's called PodJam TV Live. It's available at podjam.tv/live. It's embedded right there. Every Sunday you can watch it. We're on most Sundays.
Yeah, and then if you want to participate, ask questions to our guests or to us, just follow the hashtag ptvlive.
That's right. Yes. And we have some great people, great conversation going on. And for those of you listening to the podcast, we know that that's a really convenient way to get content. You can download it, listen to it later. But the live we really like, because that we can get the conversation going. So please check us out if you are around Sunday nights. Tune in, podjam.tv/live, and you can also participate as well. Now for the podcast, that's available at podjam.tv/inspiring connections.
And you can subscribe. And you can download the audio podcast through iTunes or Stitcher.
We encourage you to subscribe.
Yes, please.
That way you won't miss an episode.
And also give us a review.
Oh, we'd love it. We'd love a 5-star review if possible. And if you give us that 5-star review, we'd be happy to give you a shout out on a future show.
Plus, why are we asking?
Well, the reviews, and this goes for all podcasting, the reviews really help the podcast game some visibility in iTunes. There's a lot of podcasts out there, and the more interaction we get, the more visibility we get for the podcast. So if you like what you're hearing, we certainly encourage you to give us that review. And it helps us with the feedback and knowing what resonates and what you like more of and what new things you want us to talk about. So that would be really, really appreciated. I think that'll do it, right?
Yep.
For another edition of Inspiring Connections. We will see you next time.